the years, marketers have been analyzing the different generations, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and recently we have seen there's a red thread among all of them: speed. They all want everything to happen now. My name is Francisco Serrano, and I am the Chief Speed Officer at 1-to-1 and the host of the Now Gen podcast. Join me. Each episode, we talk about what's happening with brands, see how brand professionals across different industries cope with this fast-changing market, and live up to the expectation of this now generation. Welcome.
This episode is brought to you by 1-to-1, the fastest day-to-day design, content, and digital studio. 1-to-1 has been the premier partner for many Fortune 500 companies, proving that tight deadlines shouldn't be a hassle.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the Now Gen podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the tremendous results that come from connecting organically with your customer and creating this wonderful user experience. How do we come about to doing that? And we have a very special guest today because it turned a complete category into a phenomenal user experience. So before it was you call a cab or you ask for a taxi, but nowadays it just broke everything and anything we knew about user experience and just transform it completely. And Uber, that's kind of the brand behind the what we're going to talk about today. And for that, we have Suzanne Lindbergh. She is the global head of social brand strategy, social media and content, and influencer creative marketing for Uber. Thank you, Suzanne, for being here today with us.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the time.
No, it's so exciting. We were talking offline about, commute and how it has impacted everybody, the work from home and to move to one place to another. And so, but before we get into all that sweet stuff, tell us a little bit, how did you end up where you're at?
That's a great question. So ending up at Uber, of course, I've used Uber, like I'm sure many of your listeners, for many, many, many years. I'll never forget the very first time that I think I was in San Francisco on a business trip for another company. And someone said, I said, oh God, San Francisco is just typically pretty tough for getting taxis. And someone said, let's not get an Uber. And they showed me what to do. And I, from that point on, was blown away. It's been a part of my life for the last decade. Love the product. It solved a real need for customers in many locations, not just, cities. I think pretty much any city outside of New York City, which is just famed for its millions of yellow cabs. I think everywhere else on the planet, you would struggle sometimes to, get transportation easily, efficiently, quickly, get you to your destination on time. And Uber definitely did transform mobility and transportation, and then subsequently also has transformed the delivery business, where now you can order not just restaurant food to be delivered, but grocery, pharmacy, quite a wide array of items you can have delivered to your house now as a result of Uber Eats. So I during the pandemic, I was at Verizon. I had run a content studio at Verizon for 7 years. And the world was changing dramatically, of course, during the pandemic, right? So the core of our studio at that time was having many celebrities come into the studio in person and create content with us for Verizon held media brands. Mm-hmm. Well, that was not going to happen anymore, right? The pandemic dramatically changed that. For at least a couple of years, nobody was going into any studios in person to create content in person. And I really wish that Verizon, great company, wish that they had the patience to stick things through a little bit longer. but they did not. And they started to dissemble essentially their media brand and ended up selling it off during the height of the pandemic, letting a lot of groups of folks move on and go on to other things, not so willingly, sadly. So during the pandemic, I interviewed at a bunch of companies and was really struck by a role that Uber had, and I interviewed for it, and here I am.
Great. I mean, in piggybacking on your comments about, the experience, when you ask for an Uber, everything sounds great. I mean, from asking for it to receiving it, and in the majority of the cases, you get, somebody that is going to invite you to their car, and sometimes they invite you for water. It's completely a different experience. I mean, I would imagine that translates into a lot of effort to engaging with consumers as a midpoint. How do you come about to communicating with them? And so, is it social media the place to do it, or how do you connect with consumers?
Yeah, so social media definitely plays a role. There are a lot of very, very hardworking folks and teams at Uber who are constantly working on ways to communicate really efficiently and pleasantly with consumers. It's everything from our direct email team, our CRM group, getting consumers information about new features and new initiatives. It's also in the app itself, communicating with consumers when there might be a new feature or something they need to be aware of. So we have that real estate in the app to communicate with consumers. And we are always working on making those communications with consumers really smart, really efficient, really effective. And then one of the areas that I can speak to most is the area of social media and what we're doing across Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn and even Facebook as well. And it's really twofold. Customers can reach out to us if they're having an issue. They often do. We have extensive Uber support handles across Twitter and across Instagram and across LinkedIn, where if you're having a problem, maybe a food order is taking a little bit longer than you feel it should, you can get some answers and information via Uber support on social media. Also, maybe if a ride is delayed or there's an app, you're experiencing a little minor glitch in your request for a car, you can reach out to us, and that support team function is really fantastic. They're answering lots of folks across the globe every day. The area that I spend a lot of our team effort on is actually using the social handles as a point of conversation. It's one of the few pieces of marketing that allows you to actually establish a two-way conversation every single day, 24/7, throughout the year globally, to find out what customers are thinking and saying, to engage with them, to have a little bit of fun with them, a little bit of banter with them. Certainly, we use the handles to inform about what we're working on. Maybe there's a new comms initiative, a new product feature. Maybe there's a new a social impact initiative that we're engaging in. So we use the handles and all the channels that we, on a daily basis, that we have to let people know what we're up to let people know what's going on at Uber, to let people know about the communities that we're working with, to let people know about, new ideas and new things that are kind of coming down the pike that they can be aware of. But we also use our social media channels just to establish a really human relationship with our customers. And what I often say is, I say, social media can often be the welcome mat for customers. It can be the way that you kind of lay out, like, welcome, here's the welcome mat. Come on in, kind of come on in and engage with us. It can be a really pleasant way to create a very personal human side of the brand to current customers and potential customers as well.
And do you see, when you're connecting with them and you're learning from what they're doing, the instant gratification? Do you feel it there? do they want that be manifested in some shape or form?
Oh,
Brand?
I think that people want to be heard, right? I just think in general it's a very core psychological need that people have to be heard. And we get lots of really, so on the support side, we're solving problems. We're quite literally solving problems, and people are very appreciative that a problem has been solved for them and taken care of. So our support function is so important. And then on the side of things where it's conversation and engagement and banter, I think there's an affiliation that I think people want to have with the brands that they love. I know I certainly like to have that affiliation with brands that I really like and really appreciate and look up to and use their products or their services in my daily life. I think people just really like to know that there are human beings on the other side of the Twitter page or the software. There are folks that want to make sure that their experience is a good one, with all the best intents and all the best hope for great outcomes. And there's a little bit of a magic that I think that great brands bring to their customers, right? Is a little bit of a magic in the product itself, but sort of a magic in how the brand communicates with you as well. And so I think that we have had great success over the time that I've been there for just about a year and a half. We've had great success in really increasing engagement with customers. I think we did after 2022, I think we did you're up nearly 600% in engagement year over year, which just tells me that what we're doing is working really nicely. So we're increasing in engagement, increasing in brand sentiment, and hopefully making people feel like they're appreciated as customers of the brand.
Yeah, and I want to touch 2 points. One, towards the customer, and the other word towards you as a professional marketer for the brand. Which social media channel works best for you guys as far as creating that sense of loyalty from your dear customer? That's a question for you. And as far as the customer, do you feel at any point that user-generated content will be part of your strategy and communication in the coming years? Meaning that
so let me start. Yeah, let me start with the latter question. We use user-generated content all the time.
okay.
One of the most important on our social media channels, and that was a big change for us. Didn't happen so much until I had kind of gotten there and rejiggered the strategy a bit around social media, just that, and it really comes from a very simple place. People want, like I said earlier, people want to see a human side to the brand. People want to break that fourth wall a little bit, and they want to feel like they're engaging with other human beings. It's a very, like I mentioned earlier, it's a very, very basic psychological need for most folks. And UGC really helps to engage with communities. It really helps when we highlight some user-generated content. People are so appreciative when we do that. They love that we're highlighting people who have had a great experience with the brand, or we highlight people who have interesting and compelling things to say about Uber or say about the brand. And so we do use user-generated content on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I think TikTok has changed the game on social media. What TikTok has done, because of the nature of that platform, that it is all user-generated video content.
Yeah.
TikTok has basically informed all social media channels that you better not show up too polished, and you better not show up with ads, and very highly polished marketing content. Yeah. Social media has changed dramatically. You better show up to every channel on social media with content that feels like it's kind of scrappy, that it was shot on an iPhone, and we do shoot a ton on an iPhone. Most of the content that we are doing is shot on an iPhone, and has that feel to it that, your best friend shot it and edited it very quickly on an iPhone with easy to use tools. Like, it should not feel like it should not feel like it's a polished marketing campaign every time you turn to social media. Now, there is room for campaign assets. Absolutely, we make room for very nicely done campaign assets on our social media, but they must be interwoven with UGC content that's made easily and in the moment on an iPhone, content that leans into culture and leans into trends that we're seeing on social media in the moment, jumping on board that, just for relevance sake and to make sure that we're really, taking advantage of cultural moments. But yeah, UGC is a big part of what we do. And we shine a light on a lot of folks and their positive experiences with our product and with the app. And then we highlight those on our social media. As for which channels we think work the best, I mean, they all have different reasons and ways of doing what they do, right? We use them all. I think that they all so Twitter is great during Super Bowl to get stuff trending and engage quickly in the moment with other brands and customers. Mm-hmm. So that's what we heavily leaned into during the Super Bowl just last week we did a big Uber One campaign at the Super Bowl to get Uber One trending and to engage with other brands and engage with customers who really liked our Super Bowl ad. That in the moment by far is Twitter. Twitter is great at that. It is a great companion to sporting events, to award ceremonies, to things that are happening in the moment and kind of telling the tale in the moment of what's going on. So I love Twitter for that. Instagram, of course, is fantastic for anything very visual, right? Stuff that you want to make a statement visually with, some short form videos, some beautiful graphics, that type of thing. We've been using Instagram Reels quite a bit. IG Stories is I think Instagram Stories is a way that you can kind of do something similar to what you do on Twitter, but in a visual way, right? So Instagram Stories, you can go to an event and you could tell the story of the event very quickly and very visually with Instagram Stories, which is really a lot of fun. And because it disappears in 24 hours, when you are posting to stories, you're making a big statement that we are at a cultural moment here and we are doing something right now that's interesting for the next 24 hours. So when you see that little circle light up on your Instagram, go here and check out what we're doing. And we did a lot of that last week when we were on site at the Super Bowl for some of our NFL experiences and the NFL honors, of which we were a sponsor. We wanted to tell the stories of those two events on Instagram. We used Instagram Stories for that. And then TikTok has become really like an Uber lifestyle play for us. It has to be very short form content, short video, very relatable. And we have chosen a tact of using creators and our own in-house creative team, who sits a gentleman who sits on my team to create fun, entertaining. It's an entertainment platform, TikTok, fun, entertaining videos that sort of encompass the Uber lifestyle, and from food culture to transportation culture, all the funny and silly little things that we do when we're ordering food or eating, and the other little things that happen when we jump into an Uber that we kind of just make very entertaining little moments out of. So each channel has its place. We use them all for different things, and they make up a very robust way to communicate in the moment with current and future customers.
I've seen, across the globe that speed is beyond service is something very relevant. Yep. And in many brands, for many brands, a good way of satisfying that need for speed is through innovation. Do you guys innovate, and how do you come about building a funnel of innovation for the consumer?
Yeah, and this is not an area that I work on heavily, and I want to be careful that I don't attempt to take credit for something that I'm not working on. Our teams are innovating all the time. We have an incredibly robust engineering team, an incredible product marketing team. I feel like every week we are adding a feature or doing something that just makes everybody's lives easier. And I know about those because we talk about those on our social media handles, right? So I know about things. When is this podcast coming out?
It's coming out in a couple months, probably.
Okay, fantastic. So between now and the next couple months, you're going to see a redesigned app that's going to just make things a lot easier for folks to navigate the app and the tiles in the app. You're going to see some other incredible features that we'll be talking about, and always with the goal to listen to customers, hear what they're saying, right? Hear things that they're finding when they're traveling around in an Uber or when they're ordering delivery from Uber Eats, and looking at those different potential requests, if you will, as possible features. If enough people are talking about a specific request, or we're seeing from an engineering standpoint, we've come up with unique and new and really incredible ways to make people's lives easier in the app, and to make the app itself easier to use, but it just also easier to get a car, easier to get a delivery, more products, so that every type of vehicle. I think now we have everything from the original Uber, which is just sort of a car, all the way up to charter buses now. And there is an Uber commuter boat on the Thames in London, right? There are Lime scooters. There are just the range of product. And we're hearing from people all the time about the different types of transportation products. We're hearing from people all the time about the selection that we want to increase on the delivery side of the business, so that you can deliver everything from restaurant food to grocery to pharmacy to Apple products to clothing, like you name it, adding to that list of things that people want to be able to deliver. So we're always looking at innovating. Great solid product marketing team, engineering team, operations teams that are always looking at ways to make things faster, better, safer, magical every single day. And we talk about them in marketing. We tell people about them in direct mail. We tell people about them on social media and in press releases. So there's always innovating all the time. Really, we're a tech company that is always making sure that we're providing our products in a manner that is best for everybody.
Yeah, and when you were talking about the culture that you guys have as a brand, and you were talking about boats in London, and you're talking about Lime scooters and mobility in general, and geographical, how do you maintain that thread among everyone in the communication, among categories and among geographic location and the culture? That should be a heck of a job right there.
Yeah, no, it's so funny, because I often talk about one of the great analogies, I think, in product and in marketing and in sort of brand experiences. McDonald's is just fantastic for that. French fry tastes the same in New York City as it does in London, as it does in, Tokyo, right? Starbucks, somewhat similar, I think, is that if I want to get that latte in DC and then I'm traveling and I want that latte again, but I'm traveling in Italy or wherever, Australia, it's the same. And that's a really hard thing to do. And it's hats off to the operations teams around the world who are working really, really hard to make sure that those experiences carry over with cultural tweaks to them, of course, right? If you're in a different country, different region, you're going to want to make sure that you're not sort of bombastically jumping into a region and insisting that everybody do everything like, America does it because the company happens to be headquartered here. We've always thought globally. We're one of the only transportation and companies of our ilk that does think globally and does have global businesses around the world. And, I myself have had wonderful experiences as I've traveled on business or even on pleasure of getting into a different city in the United States or a different region entirely. And we do try to offer the same, where possible, offer the same in-app experience with cultural tweaks, offer the same products and breadth of product experience around the world wherever possible. Very important. We have a team that ensures that the drivers and couriers that drive with Uber and deliver food with Uber are of the highest quality of folks around. And so it is definitely with great thought and great effort of our operations teams globally to do that. And again, I mean, there are those North Stars of certain companies who just do this incredibly well. And I think we do it incredibly well and are always trying harder to do better.
And do you guys communicate? Do you have like efforts in communicating with the drivers and connecting them, because you have different, coming from every part of the world? And
Sure. Yeah. Every region has systems in place to communicate with the drivers.
Okay.
And getting them the information that they need to do their jobs, learning about new features, new opportunities, that type of thing. So yes, every country, we have a great definitely great efforts to be in touch with our drivers, making sure that they know everything that they need to know in order to be excellent drivers with Uber.
Okay, great. So coming back to everything that we have discussed here and your experience and, living in this challenging times of meeting the now generation, what would you be the number one takeaway that you would give us today, so that marketers around the globe or people that are listening to this, they can consider that as a best practice and use it coming from a brand like so powerful like you?
Yeah, well, I think it's something that's been kind of bubbling up over the last couple of years, but marketing has changed pretty dramatically. And if companies are not employing sort of an always on marketing strategy, I think they're kind of making a big mistake. It used to be days and days and days ago, years ago, where a company would work really, really hard on a campaign for several months, and then they would release that campaign. That campaign would happen, and then you wouldn't hear from the company for a while again because they're working on the next campaign, right? That has changed. And at Uber, we realized that a long time ago as well. There are still definitely big campaigns, but in between each big campaign, there is a constant effort to keep in touch with the customer, both future customers and current customers, through CRM tactics, through social media, through smaller promotional efforts like in performance marketing that has a very direct call to action in the moment. We have also in-app communications that I mentioned to you. We have events throughout the year that we're engaging, smaller events. It's sort of this mix of bigger, medium-sized, smaller events that, like, every single day we are attempting to have solid, robust conversations with customers. And that's just what marketing has become. Marketing has become an always-on effort. Every different group within the company has to play its role. The comms team plays its role. Social media in concert with that comms team plays an important role. Then we collaborate very closely with the marketing teams, the direct marketing teams, the performance marketing teams, the brand teams. It's like this cross-functional effort that is constantly kind of morphing, changing based on the day, but has to be a really important cross-functional effort so that we are engaging and talking with the customers every single day. People have a lot coming at them all the time. You definitely don't want to take a step back and take yourself out of that mix, right? You want to be talking with your customers, both to hear what they're having to say, but also sharing with them how you're going to make their lives better and solve problems for them every single day. And I think that that's one of the most important things. Companies have to wrap their minds around that. And I think one of the easiest things to do especially smaller companies who may not have massive marketing teams, establish social media channels. It's easy to get started. Try to post, if you can, something interesting 3, 4, 5 times a week. Work your way up to trying to post things most days. And it should not be polished marketing campaigns. It can be short form videos that your employees are doing in the office. It can be short form customer videos. It can be going out into the field and utilizing your product yourselves and showing how you're utilizing that product. Just like that's how you can start the conversation with people, and you'll start to grow followers and start to increase your engagement. And as you're building the company and sort of the larger marketing strategy, you'll have already established yourselves with some customers and be engaging with them. I always tell people, like, don't sit around and fret about, how can we get started? We don't have resources. It takes one person to get started. It quite literally takes one person to get started. Just get started and start doing it now, and it will pay back dividends in the future.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying, always have a marketing on type of approach. It's kind of and the reason why I see that, I don't know your thoughts on this, but is because you cannot be perfect all the time. You have to, it's better to be fast and react. So speed over perfection, to have that piece of content out there and start, building it up and test and learn and go to the next, and always keeping that communication open and perfecting it alongside your campaigns that are thought and going through. But yeah, that I have seen that a lot across all the people that have been here in the podcast, that they say, relentless transformation, becoming the next better version of yourself that the customer needs and wants, and always be talking to them, because like they say in my old town, if you're not in the picture, you're not printed. Right.
Well, that's exactly right. And you can't expect, you have to create a through line. Well, you can't create momentum if you're just coming out in sporadic spurts of here and then nothing for a while and then here. So you want to create that momentum, but you also want to create that kind of through line. It's like, it's analogous to a relationship. I mean, that's really ultimately what customers and companies are trying to create a relationship with their customer, a trusted relationship, and out of that relationship is hopefully it's both a personal relationship that ultimately is at times a business relationship as well. But you're creating that relationship. You can't have a strong, trusted relationship if you only call somebody once a year or twice a year, right? It's like that analogy of your friends or your family. You call them once a year. That's not really a very strong relationship. That's and companies just need to, you almost need to break it down and think of things just on a much more simple human perspective. Just behave like a human. The best brands just behave like humans. Sometimes they make mistakes. They apologize quickly for them and are very gracious and can be self-deprecating. Humans are fun and funny occasionally. Humans are serious at times. Humans are hopefully honest. And through that honesty, you get to foster. I mean, it's just, that's if a brand just stops getting too in their own head about that kind of stuff and just engage in a relationship with your future and potential customers, it will take you so far. And we often do that. Like, I will be in meetings sometimes and go, guys, we are way overthinking this. What if you're the customer now, you're the customer. What do you want to hear from us? Oh, well, I just want to hear that, XYZ. Okay, then let's just say that.
Yeah.
Like, let's
Push
just
it.
say that.
Yeah. Push it and let's see what's coming out of the other side of the tunnel.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's exactly right. So I think that's really important. And I with social media and the area that I am in, with a great team of folks that I am responsible for, that's really the name of the game. What are we going to say to people today? How are we going to engage with them today? On that road to forming just tighter, closer relationships with the Uber ecosystem. So
Great. Well, thank you so much, Suzanne, for that takeaway. I'm sure that it's going to be
absolutely
to our listeners and viewers. Okay, so moving away from what we've been talking about, I want to know what would be as an expert in branding, right? People want to know, strange things from marketers. And I would like to know what is the kind of snack that you usually pick for when going on the go? Like on the go, what brand and why?
Great question. A snack that I pick for on the go. Depends on what day of the week it is. If it's a Saturday, it might be something unhealthy. But during the week, I really try. This is something I've just from a healthy perspective. Monday through Friday, I am a very rigid eater, and I work out. I'm a runner, so I run, and I'm very rigid in how I eat during the week. It's pretty much all vegetarian, leaning toward vegan. But then on the weekend, I'll have a burger, right? So on a Saturday, I'll have a cheeseburger and fries, just because you can't. But like, I know this is funny. I mean, I'm a Starbucks girl. I start every single day with a Starbucks. Love my oat milk latte. Crave it the minute I get up. So that's definitely a brand that I love over time. I think they do a great job. And then during the day itself, I would like my go-to beverage is like a La Croix bubble water. I love that. And I love Blue Diamond almonds. I think they're fantastic.
Yes.
But then if I'm going for a potato chip on the weekend, it's a Lay's potato chips. I'm super old school with that.
Okay.
Yeah, super old school with a Lay's potato chip. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, I hope
That's
that
good.
gives you a
That's
little
good.
bit of a purview. Yeah.
That's good. And that Lay's, is it the typical Lay's or do you
Oh
barbecue
yeah, no, it's the
the
salty thin
original?
crisp lay. It's the original salty thin crisp lay. Nothing better potato chip
You
wise,
know,
in my
coming
opinion.
to that comment, I love Lay's too, but not in
Yeah.
Mexico. They were called Sabritas, and
Oh
and
yeah, of course. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
yeah, and there was an ad, and the unique selling proposition was, I'll bet you cannot have just one.
Exactly. You can't have just one.
Yeah.
Definitely. That
And
is
then
the
and it was
proposition.
they did a jingle and all that, and singers, they will sing it, and it was awesome, and
Yeah.
you would
That's
taste it,
amazing.
and you cannot just have one, you
You
would.
can't have just no, can't have just one. Yeah.
So, well, thank you for sharing that. Oh,
Of
okay.
course.
So we have to wrap this one out. I know
Okay.
you're very busy. Thank you so much for this.
Yes, of course.
We've been talking to Suzanne Lindbergh. She is the global head of social brand strategy, social media and content, and also influencer creator marketing at Uber. Where can people reach out to you, Suzanne?
Yeah, so I am on Twitter. It's at Suzanne Buzz on Twitter. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Suzanne Lindbergh. Look me up there. I'm very responsive on LinkedIn, in-mail messages and LinkedIn messages. I try to keep conversation going there. I wouldn't say I'm a prolific poster on LinkedIn, but I post once every week or so on LinkedIn, but I'm very up to date there. Probably a great place to reach out to me. Happy to have a conversation with anybody who is up for it. So thanks so much.
Great, you heard it, people. So Twitter and LinkedIn, that's the best place to reach this phenomenal marketer. Thank you so much for being here today again. And everybody else, if you want to keep learning what the gurus of marketing are doing with these brands and the challenging now generation, do not hesitate to take a look at their episodes. They are very useful so you can use them in your day-to-day marketing. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.